What's up, students? It was so awesome being able to see some of you last week on the Zoom call. I loved it. I don't know about you. And I heard through the grapevine that Carly thinks I dress like a bumblebee, to which I say, yeah, I see it now. It's fair. It's fair. But during that call, I asked what some of your favorite movies were. Mine is either The Dark Knight or probably the original Jurassic Park. And I asked that because often what makes us love a movie or even a show, or it be great in our eyes, is how much we love the main characters, right? And typically movies show us some of what happens in their life through their backstory, and understanding really that helps make the story more complex and interesting and compelling. That's what draws us in. But sometimes introducing those things can seem random, like when a dad is in the middle of a chase to find his daughter's kidnappers, and suddenly the movie flashes back to a scene where him and his daughter are arguing in the kitchen, and you're like, wait, how did we get back here? He's just chasing her, but what does this have to do with anything? And chances are you've also felt that way living your own life. There are these moments in our real life stories that make us ask the same question: what's happening? What's the point of what's going on? What's the point of going through this? We're talking about difficulties, pain, and struggle. We're talking about problems, the things that will be part of our backstory one day. Even what we're going through right now will be part of our backstory one day. I shared this in the call, but I love something that Declan, our very own Declan, shout out, posted a few weeks ago that someday soon we'll be playing in parks and hanging out, and it just painted this beautiful picture of what will be. But as for now, COVID and whatever you're going through, they're in our current story. And when we're in the middle of them, it's rough. For the past few weeks, we've been talking about this question: what do you do when you don't know what to do? And today we're talking about what you do when a few things. People make fun of you, or a friend dies, or your learning disability makes everything a lot more difficult. Maybe your parents' divorce is killing you on the inside. Your self-harm habit gets out of control. Someone you love gets really sick, and so on. What to do in those? In other words, the heavy stuff, the painful stuff, the real life stuff. But before we can even ask the question, what do I do? We often ask ourselves, why? Why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this? Why is this happening now? And just like a movie that flashes back to a scene that doesn't seem to make any sense at the moment, difficulties can make us feel the same way. We've all had an experience that hurts and really just feels pointless in the moment. And in those times, it can be really difficult for us to see, like I said, any point beyond our pain, to find hope despite the hurt, or to find the determination to keep going despite the difficulties. But when we find life confusing or difficult, we can actually learn what we can do by looking to people who have handled similar situations, which brings us back to the story and life of Joseph. Now, we've been looking at some events in Joseph's life. The account of his journey is found in the Old Testament in the Bible, in the first book, Genesis, which basically means he just lived a long time before Jesus. So if you have a Bible, turn there. If not, I'll read it from here in just a minute. But here's a recap. So Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. Yikes, right? Then he was taken to a foreign country, Egypt, where he was forced to work for a high-powered official. And there he was falsely accused of doing something he didn't even do. And then he was thrown into prison. So from free man to slave to prisoner, if anyone had earned the right to ask, what's the point? Why is all this happening to me? It was Joseph. And that's where we pick up. See, Joseph was in jail for a crime that he didn't even commit. And here he makes some new friends. Check out what Genesis 40 says. It says that sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry, and his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them into custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison as where Joseph is confined. See, Pharaoh is the boss of all of Egypt. So if he got mad and you wanted you thrown into prison, well, that's where you'd go. No questions asked, even if you hadn't done anything illegal. And that's what happened to these two guys. They were thrown into prison with Joseph. And the story continues. It says this: after they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now, when Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were kind of dejected. And so he asked the Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in the master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there's no one here to interpret them. We don't know what they meant," basically. Then Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. Now, there's a lot happening here, okay? Remember, Joseph is in prison for a crime he did not commit. And even in this really difficult situation, Joseph continues to honor God. That's key. The men told Joseph their dreams, and with God's help, Joseph told them what they meant. And then what Joseph said would happen based on the dream. The chief cupbearer had Joseph said he would be restored to a favorable position, and he was. As for the chief baker, Joseph said they wouldn't have the same luck, and unfortunately he didn't. Listen, the rest of the story of what happened here was just as crazy. It's worth the read. Go back and read Genesis 40. But you would think, given what Joseph had done to help the cupbearer out, it would have made sense for the cupbearer to speak up and say, "Hey, thank you, Mr. Pharaoh, for helping me out. I just want you to know that I was locked up with this guy who interpreted my dream to perfection. I know you have dreams and that you need interpretation, so you may want to think about getting this dude on your staff ASAP." But that's not what happened. See, the story tells us that the cupbearer, the instant he was restored, forgot all about Joseph. He got out of jail and went on with his life. Ouch, right? Over time, Joseph was waiting in jail for his friend to remember him and realize that not only did his friend just forget him, what he did to help him didn't even help Joseph's situation. I'm sure he was tempted to wonder, what was the point in all that? It didn't help my life get any better at all. Has God just forgotten about me here? I thought I did what was right, and I'm still here in jail. But then 2 years later, Pharaoh had two dreams, and that troubled him, and he desperately searched for someone on his staff who could interpret them. But no one could. And that's when the cupbearer remembered Joseph. Pharaoh called for Joseph, who just came up, and he interpreted the dream with incredible accuracy. And as a result, eventually Joseph was made second in charge in all of Egypt. Under Pharaoh's leadership, Egypt survived a terrible famine, which eventually put Egypt in position to save Joseph's family and other people from his homeland who were really suffering from the famine. And it was 2 full years before the cupbearer even remembered Joseph. And even when Joseph was promoted to a position of incredible power, he was still living in a foreign land. So it wasn't like Joseph was able to go home as a free man. And Joseph was still second in command under Pharaoh, which meant that if Pharaoh was having a bad day and decided he wanted Joseph dead, he could snap his fingers and make it happen. So no, this didn't make Joseph's life perfect, not even close. But when we see the big picture and we understand the context to this backstory, we see that Joseph's really challenging circumstances uniquely positioned him to do something great. Joseph still had to wait 2 years. 2 years, and all the good things that happened in Joseph's life didn't make those bad things okay. Being promoted to second in command didn't undo the challenges he faced leading up to that. But at the same time, those difficult circumstances positioned him and prepared him for something great, something only he could do. And the same's true for you and for me. Because of sin, things happen that aren't fair, but that don't make sense. People hurt each other and they create systems of hurt. But when it seems like it's impossible that anything good can come out of this situation, remember God is really good at doing the impossible. See, Romans 8:28 says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Listen, it may not seem to make things better. It may not even make sense yet, but God is in the business of taking our hurt, taking our difficulties, and taking our pain and redeeming them. That means that even if it was done in evil and meant for evil in our eyes, it can still be used for good, not only for us, but for others. In other words, when you don't know what to do, remember that your problems can position you for a purpose. This doesn't mean that we can just tie a bow on every bad thing and it goes away. It doesn't mean everything will be fixed and go back to being how it was before that everything had happened. It just means that we can leave room for God to tell a new story in our hard circumstances. It means we can have confidence in God's ability to redeem things, to know that good can come from bad. It means that the bad stuff doesn't get the last word. The hardest and worst things we experience aren't the end of us or our story. In fact, they could be the part of something. They could be a part of something more. So when we go through pain and we can't see the purpose yet, here are some things that can help us kind of get a bigger perspective. Just a couple things. First, remember that no one else has your life story. Your difficult circumstances aren't fun, but they're unique to you. They put you in a position to learn and grow and discover things that no one else can. God is using your tough stuff in ways you can't imagine because they have shaped you in ways that no one else has been shaped. That may not make it easier, but it may give you a perspective or a way to see it differently. And that's a key play. Number two, remember that it's your story, that your story can interact with others. Although no one else has your life story, many people face similar circumstances, and you could be a voice to help them through their own challenges and pain. Help you would not have been able to do or provide had you not gone through this thing that yourself. So when you go through family drama, you can help people who are going through family drama. When you go through a hard breakup, you can now understand how someone else feels when they're going through a hard breakup themselves. And when you have big doubts and questions in your faith, or about God, you can be a safe place to talk about those for people who are asking questions of their own. You can become a person who looks around them, not just at themselves, looks around them and sees other people's struggles and says, oh, you feel that? Me too. Oh, you've experienced that? I've been there. Can I tell you my experience in that? See, the truth is the next best thing to having something fixed for us is having someone who has been through it too. To walk alongside that mess with us. That's one of the reasons we make sure everybody, when they come to students, has a small group leader and has a community. Our leaders have been through some real hard stuff, often more than you even realize. And if you're going through something, one of the best people to talk to is your leader. Even if they've never experienced, they haven't experienced your exact situation, they'll have a better perspective because of what they've experienced themselves. Joseph went through pain that felt pointless. But when we see his backstory and we see that God used his problems and that positioned him for a purpose. God took his impossibly bad situation and used it to create unimaginable good down the road. We'll talk about that more next week. But for now, imagine if he could do the same with you. What if God used your painful circumstances to position you for something amazing that you haven't even imagined yet? And what if the first step is simply asking for his help? You can do that today. Maybe you need to take that first step in following Jesus so you can begin to unlock what this purpose is in what you're going through. If you have questions about following Jesus, if you have questions about what we talked about today, reach out to me personally. You can Instagram message me. You can Facebook message me. You can text me. You can email me at j.dykman@newstory.church. Man, I want to talk with you and get you connected with someone else if I can't specifically help you in that. We love you guys, and I can't wait to see you soon. We'll see you then.